The Monday, September 24th, 2012, Boothbay Harbor Selectmen's meeting to order. Thank you for joining us. Let me introduce the members of the board and our guests. We can see the ladder, the financial officer, Kelly Bigos, our secretary, Tom Wooden, the town manager, Selectman J.D. Warren, Art Hathaway, Valerie Augustine, Robert Spillane, and myself, Bill Hamblin. And that's who we are. First order of business is to approve the minutes of last meeting.
A motion that we approve the minutes of
Second.
September 10th.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes of the September 10th meeting. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? They are approved. Next order of business on the agenda is the financials, and I'll turn the floor over to Julia.
Total revenue year-to-date is $3,441,272, which is, as of today, we've received 47.2% of our 46 point, in comparison to 46.8 of this time last year. Total expenses year-to-date, $2,343,166. Do you have any questions on the revenue and expense sheet? As of today, we've also collected 50% of our tax revenue as well. 11 days after review.
Excellent. And the lines fall one on top of one another, so we don't have to ask you anymore why they're offset.
Total accounts payable, $66,132.14, and the bank balance is $3,488,588.
So my takeaway is we're sitting pretty much where we should be.
We are on target.
Any questions for Julia? Thank you so
Such
much.
lines line up, so we're all happy.
Yeah.
Everything lines up.
Brings us to town manager announcements.
The only one I have this evening is each year, Deb Mullen, who's a member of the Lincoln County Triad, asked me to make an announcement for her that coming up on October 27th at the Boothbay Region Elementary School from 10 in the morning to 2 in the afternoon is Elder Appreciation Day for Lincoln County Triad. And I'll just read a little paragraph of what this is about. Our Senior Appreciation Day is an opportunity for us to meet the other Lincoln County seniors who have contributed and continue to contribute to making Lincoln County the best county to live in. We are all proud of our Lincoln County quality of life, and we appreciate the combined efforts to make Lincoln County one of the best places to live in America. As members of the Lincoln County Triad, we have organized and sponsored this yearly event to show our appreciation for what we together have accomplished. So I just told her I would make that statement on television for her to get some participation there on Saturday, October 27th. That's the only announcement I have.
Thank you. That brings us to our public hearing for a liquor license for China by the Sea. We have it all in front of you. This is a renewal, and it has been initialed by the police chief for malt, spiritus, and Venus license.
I motion that we approve the liquor license for China by the Sea.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? It's unanimous. That brings us to our first public forum. This is an opportunity for the public to address items that are in the agenda. We've gone to the system where we have two public forums. The first, if you want to comment on something that's coming up in the agenda so that we have additional information or opinions on what's in the agenda, and then there'll be a second public forum after we've discussed our old business and new business on any other topic. So this first one is for things that are in the agenda. And again, although many of you are very familiar to all of us, please state your name and your address when you stand so that it's recorded for Channel 7 and other people who may not know you. Anybody? Going
I'd like to ask a question. Why are we having two public forums? When was that actually agreed? This is a Board of Selectmen's meeting. It's,
Yeah.
public forum is town meeting. While I can see that under certain conditions, it might make a lot of sense, I think it interferes strongly with our meetings when we have two public forums. There were a lot of things that were said about having two public forums by different people. I haven't seen any of those materialize. For example, by now we should have had somewhere between 100 and 150 people at every meeting, and I don't see that. I just think that until that's voted on as a way of running a meeting, I just find that it's an unnecessary drag on the meeting. If somebody has something to say, we should hear what they have to say, and that should be that.
Yeah, I think you're quite correct. It was never formally voted on by the board. It was something we tried in the agenda. And all I can do is reiterate, I think, the thought behind it, and that is people wanted the opportunity to speak before certain items were discussed so that their inputs were timely. And then they wanted a chance to speak on other business after our business, to comment on our business after the fact. And we've done it 2 or 3 meetings?
Yeah.
2 or 3 meetings.
Oh, I
now.
realize
Yeah.
that, and I thank you for your explanation, but
And that, I mean, I can't.
I'll
offer
speak to it.
anything
I'll
other than
speak to
that.
it later, not at this point.
Okay.
But I do voice some objection to that.
Sure.
All right.
Anybody else?
Can I make a public comment as to why 2 public comments appeals to me?
Yeah.
Frank Bassett, Boothbay Harbor. Oftentimes, things come up in the meeting that you guys are talking about that we want to comment on. And so I think you guys want to have the one at the beginning, so that if somebody wanted to say something and didn't leave, they could. But if that's our only public forum and you guys come up with something that we want to comment on, there's no place for us to do that. So that's why the second one was added.
Yeah.
And who said anything about 100, 150 people? I mean, I love it, but was that directed at something that I ever said, or that, we were gonna fill the room, or?
I presume you're directing that to me.
Yeah, Sam, I'm looking at you, yes.
Well,
Yes, explain.
I was informed that if we went public on Facebook, that we would generate a tremendous activity. We have not.
Well, I think that we generated certainly some interest. People are certainly talking to me about it, and I think they appreciate the agenda being put on there. I could never promise that we could fill this room, but I certainly would have talked to people that said that came to the meetings. Dickie Perkins came because he read it online.
Well, I'm glad at least we brought one person, Mr. Fassett, and I thank you for that.
Yeah. I don't think you do, but you're welcome.
Any further public comment on agenda items? Going once, going twice? George?
I have a question regarding the,
Again,
unless you're gonna
name
visit it again.
name and residence, please. I know it's sticky.
Oh, I'm sorry, George Ryan, Boothbay Harbor.
Thanks.
Really, come on. So anyway, what am I looking at here? Well, that too. No, the St. Andrews Task Force Activity Report. Do we get to comment on that, or are we just gonna hear the report?
That's why we have the 2 public forums. At the end of our meeting, there is a second public forum, and at that time, you can comment on any of the business that's been transacted during the meeting. Got it?
All right, and so, anything that falls under the, or anything on this agenda, we can revisit at the end.
Second public forum is wide open.
All right, thanks.
Anyone else? Going once, going twice? Yes.
I'm kind of curious on
Name and residence, please.
Derek Abbott, Boothbay Harbor. Boothbay. I'm curious on something that was taking place over on Lobster Cove Road on an issue 1 that the Public Works that was sent over there.
Yeah. Can I interrupt you for a second?
You sure?
The purpose of this first public forum was to comment on items that were on our agenda, to provide us with additional input or opinions on that. That's not an agenda item, but you can bring it up at the end of the meeting, and that would be the time for it. Thanks, appreciate it. Anyone else? Going once, going twice. On to old business. The first item under old business is the St. Andrews Task Force Activity Report. And I'll turn the floor over to our task force representative, Valerie Augustine.
Okay. So the task force continues to meet every Tuesday at 7 p.m. at the Boothbay Town Office, and the public are welcome to attend. If you have questions, you may be able to find the answer at the Boothbay Town Office. The communications volunteers have done a wonderful job in setting up kind of a home base there. And so they hold office hours on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 2 to 4 p.m. You can go in, ask them a question. At any time, you can go to the library, and there are frequently asked questions with answers written down. You can view any of the past meetings, thanks to Channel 7, and you can read any of the articles that have been written about the St. Andrews. So if you're looking for information, you have questions, you have thoughts, you can go into that town office, and it's kind of an overload of information there. The work groups are continuing to meet and are providing updates every week. Last week we heard from the Boothbay Region Ambulance Service. They have a work group going with members of Lincoln County Healthcare and with the public, analyzing what kind of impact this change will have to their budget and to their workload. They gave us an estimate of about a $300,000 increase in their annual budget. And they gave us some interesting information about ambulance choices, and talked about it. I would suggest probably watching the video of the last meeting if you're interested in the update from the ambulance service, because some of the members of the ambulance service were there and gave a lengthy speech, so that was very interesting. But I think the main takeaway from that was the $300,000 increase. We also heard from Bruce McDonald and his community hospital group, and they are moving forward with an economic analysis, and they're looking for people to help them call nearby hospitals and other hospitals in the country to get some information about community hospitals. So if you're interested in helping with that plan, you can contact Bruce McDonald directly. And then the other work group is the Lincoln County Regional Planning Group. And Stuart Smith is the contact for that. And they're looking into information about River Road. They're looking into studies about economic impact of the hospital closing, and things like property values and the Damerscott area being able to handle increased ambulance traffic. So we've got a lot of people working on all the aspects that people are concerned about. Fundraising is the last point for today, and we had a great news break that we got a $5,000 challenge grant from the Mildred H. McAvoy Foundation. So for every dollar that you want to fundraise to the St. Andrews Task Force, it will be matched up to $5,000, and those fees are mainly going towards the legal action that the task force is taking. A lawyer is preparing a product for us that will help, and unfortunately I can't say any more about it, but I think there will be updates at tomorrow's meeting about that.
I was just going to ask, when do you think we will, the legal aspects will become public?
I have not heard anything more, but I know they were moving fast and hoping to get something probably, I would guess, this week or next. Mm-hmm. And I'll let you guys know if I hear anything.
What legal aspects are you looking at?
Well, we've hired a lawyer. His name is Julius Sembronowitz, and he is working to create something that will help us. I guess he has planned out several ideas of what our options are, and he's going to help us go through each option to see which one will work the best.
Have they discussed about the options? Anything at all on the options?
No, they've I don't know.
No,
I'm sorry,
not
I
in
just
public.
asked a question.
No.
They felt because it's legal action, it needs to be held closely.
Okay, confidentiality?
Yeah.
But if you are interested in staying on top of all the news, there's a Facebook page. There's also a Google group that has access to all of the documents that have been published about the issues. And also, of course, you can watch Channel 7 or come to the Tuesday night meetings. And I urge you, if you have opinions about the task force either way, it is very helpful to have you at the meeting and give your opinion, and if you're willing to do that publicly. It's very helpful. Thanks.
Thanks, Valerie. Any questions for Valerie? Thank you. Thank you, Valerie.
Great.
The next item on our agenda is the comprehensive plan and the appointment of the comprehensive plan committee members. And to start with, I'll turn the floor over to Bob Fonts, who is the Lincoln County planner and our comprehensive plan leader.
There we go, that's me. We've spent quite a while soliciting the committee, and I think we've got a really good group of folks with a lot of diverse interests. And what I'd like you to do is, if you're so inclined, is to appoint this group of 15 to the committee, and also appoint John O'Connell as the chair. John graciously offered to do that, and he was the chair of the last comprehensive plan effort, and so I think he'd be a good one. Now, while I'm asking you to appoint this committee, it may be that from time to time other folks may want to join the committee, and if so, if they want to be part of the committee, I'll be back here again to ask you to formally nominate or approve those folks.
I think it is the board's sense that as people continue to step forward and fill in niches, we would welcome them and love to have them, and in fact need them and would like to see them. I'm going to turn the gavel over to the vice chair, since my name is on that list, and so I need to recuse myself from the nomination and the voting on it.
Okay, we have a motion to...
I move that we appoint the 15 members on the list that Bob Fonts has made available.
Do you want to include John O'Connell as
Yes.
chair?
Yes, exactly the way that Bob had written the memo.
All right,
I second it.
okay. Any discussion? Those approve? Against? Passes.
Thank you.
Yep.
The next item on the agenda is the fish pier renovation schedule, and what I would suggest is that we schedule a workshop to discuss the renovation schedule and what we actually want to do in some detail at some future date.
Could I ask, Mr. Chairman, of the town manager, did you in fact write a letter to Mr. Reingart and explain that he was entitled and that we had approved that he stay in the premises until, I think it's April 30th?
I didn't write a letter. He was here at the last meeting, so it was discussed.
That was his public statement, and that's the statement that we're basing
Right.
the schedule on.
Right.
That was just for clarification, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'd like to hear discussion. Does the board think that's a reasonable plan of action, or?
I think that's great.
Yeah, I think it's good.
Okay.
And the workshop would be open to the public?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Do you want me to send around a couple of dates, or do you have some in mind?
I don't have any in mind. If you
Send
want to
some.
organize the dates, that would be good,
Send some
sometime in
dates.
October.
All right, I'll do that tomorrow.
Okay. And that's really all I had on the fish pier at this time. Anybody else have anything else? All right. That brings us to the walkability study, and we have Jane LaFleur here to guide us and help us and inform us.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jane LaFleur from Friends of Midcoast, Maine, and a month or so ago you agreed to join with Friends of Midcoast, Maine to bring Dan Burden to Boothbay Harbor. We have scheduled him in his very busy schedule for October 30th, Tuesday, October 30th. It's a little bit later than we had hoped, but it's the only time we could get him here. I've drafted up a flyer, and what I'd like to do is have, we had talked about a steering committee that would help organize this one workshop. And we'd like the steering committee to meet next Tuesday, October 2nd at 6:30 here at the town offices. And if any of you folks would like to be on that steering committee, it's just one meeting, but it's to help us get organized for Dan Burden's visit. And it's including everything from advertising to the walking route that we would take, to who will take responsibility for contacting different community leaders to make sure the word is out there. We can take 50 to 60 people on the walk audit, as many people that want to come are invited.
Fill the downtown.
Fill the downtown. And it includes dinner. It's a light dinner. It's 3 to 7 p.m. on Tuesday, October 30th. So I'm going to start this sign-up sheet with you folks, and then hopefully people in the audience will also sign up. As you set a great example.
No pressure.
No pressure. But this is just, again, one meeting on October 2nd to get organized, and then the walk audit itself on the 30th. It's really helpful if members of the Board of Selectmen are there, if planning board members are there, plan committee members, public safety people, people from the school system, the Y, any organizations like Rotary clubs and things like that, that really care about how this town is built and how it grows and how it develops and how we make it safe for pedestrians and visitors, as well as good for business. So it's really an economic development tool to make this town as walkable as possible, as you know. So, any questions?
Do you have a date for, do you have a date for the meeting, the pre-meeting?
The pre-meeting is October 2nd, next Tuesday.
Oh, sorry.
At 6:30, and the walk audit itself is October 30th.
October 2nd.
So October 2nd at 6:30, right here.
Yep, the room's booked.
Thank you.
Yep.
And October 30th, 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. We want to start during daylight hours, but also so that people can try to get here. If they can't get here until later in the evening because of work, so it runs over the dinner hour. If any of you have comments on the flyer, what we'll be doing is taking this to the committee on, the steering committee on October 2nd, making sure that this sits well with them, and then spreading the town electronically, as well as, putting up flyers wherever we can. So, and Valerie, I think the committee, the select board volunteered you the last time when you were not here.
To put up posters?
Or no, to help on the steering committee, totally, so. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions from the board?
No?
I have one item of old business I would like to add that, and that's just a brief report on the Footbridge activities. My understanding, Tom, is that you and Jody met with Rose, and more importantly, you and Jody have found some time and money to replace the sidewalk leading into the Footbridge with what we're now using for sidewalk, that is the stamped concrete, and to make that a little safer, a lot safer.
Yep.
So we'll have a smooth transition.
That's correct. I mean, our ultimate goal is to get all the sidewalks in town eventually uniform.
Yeah.
So that was on our long-term plan. It's just been moved up a little bit to coincide with the Footbridge enhancement. So the municipality will do the work on our own sidewalk, and the roads and the enhancement fund will do the work on the private part.
Excellent. Good.
That's great.
And I should add that it had been picked up by the newspaper 2 weeks ago, because I had mentioned some rope lighting, and that was a figment of my imagination. That is not currently under consideration. The lighting that they were thinking about downstream was the light posts that are existing on the bridge. So I apologize for that.
I did say every plan was just.
Yes, everything was flexible, and indeed it was. Anybody else have anything under old business before we move on? New business, we need to appoint a ambulance budget representative. That's one of the things that came out of the task force meeting, is they wanted to get working early and intensively on the ambulance budget because of the impact of the hospital changes. And so I would entertain a motion.
Just so you know, Palmer Payne has offered to do it again. He was doing it last year, and he would be willing to do it again if he were so appointed.
I would second that. He's very keen on it.
Yeah, he'd be terrific.
He'd be good on that.
And then I motion that we appoint Palmer Payne as the ambulance service budget representative.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
Nope.
Seeing none, all in favor?
Palmer Payne.
Palmer Payne.
By the way, he's developed quite a rapport with the ambulance service now. It was quite aggressive at one time.
Yes, I remember that.
But I think he's been doing a good job, and I think they appreciate it.
Yeah, and it's no longer us, them, it's a collaborative
Right.
effort. It's what we work
I
towards.
think it's an excellent choice.
Good. And we need to address our next meeting, which currently falls on Columbus Day.
Normally, we just move it to the next day, which would be the 9th.
It kind of works for me.
Sure.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and seconded to move our next meeting to October 9th at 7 o'clock in this room. Any discussion? All in favor? Done. Anybody have anything else under new business? That brings us to our second public forum. Sewell.
Bay Harbor. I didn't hear Bob when he was speaking. He walked out, I asked him if he'd stay, but in regards to the comprehensive plan committee, I have a question of the appointment of the chairman, or should the committee vote for a chairman who's going to chair the committee? And I don't know if you folks passed that or not. I just wonder if the committee ought to have a little say in who's going to chair the committee.
Yeah, I actually did some research on that because I thought that might be a question. And the comprehensive committee is chartered under state law, and it's up to the selectmen to specify the committee and the chair. I suppose we could decide not to do that, but I think John O'Connell is just a tremendous choice, and so I'm in favor of leaving it the way it is right now.
He apparently chaired the, if I may add,
Please.
In the memorandum that we voted on, and you may not have had access to that memorandum, Bob Fonts recommended that we appoint John O'Connell because he had had previous experience in 1997 in that same job, so that he brought something already to the meeting, and Bob felt that was a good thing. I take your point, but
Yeah, I just didn't know if the committee might meet once and see what they felt was right, or how they felt about it.
I think after,
Committee, but
yeah.
I just found it funny that the decision was already made, that's all.
I think at your first meeting, you might want to bring that up with Bob Fonts.
I will.
Yeah, bring it up with Bob Fonts, bring it up with John O'Connell. I'm sure
Sure.
there'll be a minute to the discussion. But it's not, as I said, I actually went and looked it up under state law, and it's not like setting up a planning board or something like that elects its own chair.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Bruce Andrews, Roads End. I'm sure it was an oversight on your part, but I think you neglected to recognize one of your appointed officials is in attendance tonight, our chairman of our planning board.
Yes, I did. I apologize. Mike Tomko, chairman of the planning board.
Thank you.
Anybody else? You had your
Yeah.
earlier issue.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess my question would actually be directed to the town manager. The property over on Lobster Cove Road, I guess in question it would be Everett Trask property. That would be a residential property, I believe. There was some digging going on over there. You would send the public works over there. You could let us know as the public why they were sent over there and what the problem was over there.
Sure, sure. In the 5 years that I've been here, I've received an awful lot of complaints about the condition of that yard and the amount of debris that was there, the old lobster traps, ropes, wood. There was quite a variety. There's a big giant pile of tires. There was an awful lot of stuff over there that was pretty unsightly. And even when people have their weddings and so forth, or get-togethers at the park, that's usually the complaint I get back, is that how can you have this taking place right next to the park? And when we had the Frankie Joe incident a few years ago with the trawler that was sinking out here, we revised our port regulations to address issues like this, where you have abandoned or derelict equipment, to give the municipality the ability, if it had to go in and take action to clean that stuff up. What we did was we contacted the person who's the administrator of the estate, got their written permission. They certainly were not capable of doing it because it needed heavy equipment to get some of that stuff out. We also talked to the DEP to make sure that was okay, and they had no problem with it as long as we went in, took the stuff out, and reclaimed that area as quickly as we could. And I believe we did it in a day and a half. So that's why we did that. And since we've done that, I've heard nothing but positive things.
Thanks, Tom. Thank you. Anybody else in public forum? George.
George Bryant, Boothbay Harbor. I'd like to speak to, I guess it's Valerie, regarding your task force. And I was here at the meeting when you, as selectmen, signed on with this task force. But I didn't recall you guys agreeing to finance any of the task force activities. And I'm just wondering, are you as a selectman or as a town, are we financing this, and did we have to approve this at a town meeting, or is this something that you folks can spend money at will up to a certain amount, and have you done that?
We have not appointed any funds to go to the task force, and it would require, I'm sure it would require some kind of
I simply ask rather because it sounds like you plan on taking legal action, and once you jump in, it never gets cheaper, it always gets more expensive.
And the task force recognizes that in that aspect, and has publicly stated that the action will continue as long as the funds are donated by public who are interested in the purpose of the task force. So I have not asked the Boothbay Harbor, the town of Boothbay Harbor, to donate to the task force.
Are you prepared to at any point?
I will say that some of the other towns are considering...
No, I'm talking about Boothbay Harbor.
Yeah, I will say that some of the other towns are considering donating funds, so I can't say that I won't ever bring it up, but it's not something that the select board...
I wonder, as a representative of the Board of Selectmen, would your other fellow selectmen recommend that you engage in or volunteer our money to this legal action that you spoke of tonight?
It's not something that I've brought to the board yet, but I can't say what the other board members would want to vote on, and it would be something that the board would need to discuss, and I believe it would be something that would have to go to a town meeting kind of situation. I mean, we talked about it for the Footbridge renovation funds.
I was just going to raise that point too. 2 weeks ago, you heard me say I'd love to give some amount of money to the Footbridge, but appropriating money that hasn't been voted by town meeting is a big deal and should not be short-circuited, and I feel that same way about this case as well.
So, Mr. Chairman, you feel that any funds that the town of Boothbay Harbor would commit to this would have to go through a town meeting process?
The selectmen are authorized to disperse emergency funds from the general fund for an unforeseen emergency in town, and one, I think, could argue that the closing of the hospital might be sufficed under that. My personal feeling is that if it was some small amount of money to show support to the legal fund, I might be willing to do that. Any significant amount of funds, I personally would require that we have a special referendum vote and let the town vote. I would not commit any significant funds to this without a town vote. That's my personal feeling.
Augustine just mentioned that Bill McDonald, or no, Bruce McDonald, had mentioned the use of public funds. And I wonder, is he speaking of what public funds, meaning tax dollars? Did he mention that to you in any further discussions that you might have had with him other than what I saw on TV?
I don't think I brought up any public funds that Bruce McDonald is considering. In some cases, community hospitals are funded by tax dollars. They can be. In some cases, they are not. I think what I've heard is that the only other community hospital in Maine does not run on any tax dollars, that it runs on a fee base.
I'd like to also weigh in on that subject matter. I agree with part of what Bill Hamlin said. We do not, however, have the right to spend public money unless it has been approved by a town meeting. And this is not an emergency situation. An emergency situation already has a fund. This is not an emergency. This is an extremely polarized matter, and it's a matter, I believe, that would require a public referendum, not a town meeting. It would require a public referendum. And I would only approve the expenditure of funds if the vast majority of people, equivalent to at least the number of voters that vote in a gubernatorial election, approved it. Because it's an issue that there is, when you talk about loosely about taxpayer money, there is only one pot of money in Boothbay Harbor, and that pot of money comes from property taxes. And not everyone would subscribe or agree to have their property taxes raised over this issue.
I'd like to say something. George, I would never approve of anything without going through the townspeople in the first place. No way. I would have to look at it as a selectman, as everybody put me in the office, and we're protecting the money for the people. And I don't consider that an emergency situation, so we're just going to see how the task force works itself out.
Valerie, has there been any discussion amongst your task force members about cost sharing, how each town was going to share up their costs, responsibilities? You see it, not as Mr. Splain or perhaps as Mr. Hamlin sees it, but as you see it, how would the cost sharing be divvied up amongst the towns?
In what instance?
Well, I mean, is it going to be a 25% stake each town? Is that what you're envisioning? Is that what Bill McDonald, Bruce McDonald?
There was, oh, you mean for a community hospital?
Yeah.
Again, I mean, as I said, I think some community hospitals run on tax dollars or can be run on tax dollars, and some are not. So that is kind of far down the road, I think, though, as to the specifics of that kind of an option. Tell me if I'm not answering your question, though. I don't want to evade any questions. I'm just saying it's just so far down the road that of what kind of cost sharing options, if any, would be set up for a community hospital, if that's even a possibility, if we get enough information about that, I mean, there's so many ifs in this kind of a situation that I really don't know.
Did she answer your question, George?
For now, I guess. Thank you.
Public forum, anybody else? Mr. Enger.
Rhodes End again. I know that you're all aware that we've had a lot of telephone pole replacement in the town as of late. specifically one on Rhodes End and a couple of three maybe on Atlantic Avenue. The first issue that I would like to ask you for your assistance with is, it has been over a year since they replaced, I believe, the pole on Rhodes End down by the pond. And the old pole, which is at about a 25-degree, 20-degree list to the west, is still there. The new pole is in use by Central Maine Power with our power lines, but the old one with the, I guess, cable TV, telephone lines, whatever, is still there. In other words, they haven't made the transition to the new pole, nor have they done that with most of the new poles that have been installed, for instance, on Atlantic Avenue. Second issue is the poles that they've replaced on Atlantic Avenue seem to be in exactly or very close to the same location as the old poles. Now, my concern is across from, I guess it's Chester Fawcett's house, there is a pole that was there for a long time, again with about a 15 or 20-degree list to the western. And a lot of people, including our town public works plow crews, have hit it and notched it out to the point where actually we needed a new pole. But they put the pole, the new one, in exactly the same plane as the old one. And that is between the sidewalk, or on the westerly extreme of the sidewalk, and the state road. And my concern is that if we were going to allow them to put those poles in, number one, why would it have not been a great opportunity to move them? I don't care if they're in the middle of the sidewalk, as long as we could get a wheelchair around either side or one side or the other and give a little berth for the traffic on the road. I personally have hit that pole myself with my boat in tow. And I don't know what would happen if we had the plow truck and a tractor trailer delivering food to one of the restaurants meeting at that particular area of the road. Isn't there something that you people could do to see if there isn't some way that those poles could be set back, number two, and number one, to remove the old poles that they're replacing in a more timely fashion?
Have you talked to Fairpoint at all?
It's not my position, they probably wouldn't talk to me.
Yeah, I'm not sure they talk to us either.
Well, they might talk to our town manager.
Last time I had any dealings with telephone poles, it was a convoluted path at best, since, as you point out, it is both power and telephone and cable pole, but I believe the telephone company owns the poles and cites their location. Certainly the town has no role in that.
They don't even consult us when they change poles.
Yeah, yeah. So we can call and raise a safety issue, which you've raised, and get their reaction. I'll remain hopeful, but...
I know that road is somewhat suspect in that when I was on the board, we did some investigation, and according to Jody, the DOT right-of-way is unclear. In fact, I guess there isn't one.
Yeah.
So I don't know how that plays into it, but if there isn't one, why in the world can't we then make a request in the interest of safety?
Yeah. Tom, would you be willing to give them a call and say we've got some safety concerns about, A, they've got leaning poles they haven't pulled out of service, and B, they're locating poles in what appears to be a traveled way at least some of the time.
I must say, I agree with Mr. Enger wholeheartedly. There's one pole in particular that the one nearest, I would say nearest Union Street coming this way is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, it jumps out at you. And there's often pedestrians this time of the year. I've watched people in front of me when pedestrians are crossing the road there. You really have to be careful because you really can't see them as they come off of the footbridge. And just ahead of you is a pole. And that pole really does stick out into the road.
Jumps right out at you.
It's like everything. I originally came from England, and hedges were the big deal. And if you let the hedges grow straight up along the sides of the roads, there are always more accidents because drivers don't like to drive close to something.
Yeah.
And that pole literally jumps out at you. I think it's really dangerous, and I really think that I've made a big deal of it, and I think it is a big deal, Tom.
No, I'd be glad to give him a call.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see what we can do.
Mike?
Mike Tomko, Boothbay Harbor. Jane and I were just talking, this is a great forum and an idea for us to add one more agenda item on the walkability audit. We'll be looking at telephone poles and positioning and location, and maybe town will develop a
Well, if we're gonna go there, I'd like to see all the telephone poles in downtown removed and all the utilities placed underground. Now, if anybody's got the money for that, let me know. Yeah.
But it's certainly worth considering if it's a pedestrian as well as an aesthetic issue.
Yeah. I think it's both, and especially in that particular part of Atlantic Avenue. I am particularly interested in at some point, talking about the exit from the Footbridge onto Atlantic Avenue. I think that's almost a blind issue when you're coming towards Union Street. So I think something could be done there that would make it safer.
This is terrific, a great opportunity to bring it to the forefront and put a part of a plan, even maybe something to do with the comprehensive.
Thanks, Mike. I'm glad we recognized you earlier.
Well, there you go. Thank you, Bob.
George?
I got one last comment, and I'll promise to be quick. Tom, you can probably answer this, or maybe Julia, who do you call when streetlights are out?
Well, people report them here, and then we
Okay.
call and give them the poll number.
Just call you guys.
Yeah, yeah.
Anybody else under public forum? Going once, going twice? We have no executive session scheduled for tonight.
I move we approve the warrants upon their review.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the warrants upon review. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Unanimous?
Move we adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn. There can be no discussion.
Exactly. Thank you, Cliff. Thank you, Bill.
All in favor?
Absolutely.
We are adjourned. Thank you all.